Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate and CIBC, and by the support of these donors.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Michael Puente, reporter with WBEZ Chicago. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, a coalition of community organizations is fighting to save Chicago's historic multifamily housing. A book and photo exhibit about the changing face of Logan Square. As the National Museum of Mexican Art prepares to reopen, it receives an $8 million donation. The institution's president joins us with more. Untold stories about artist Frida Kahlo in a new exhibit featuring more than 20 of her original pieces.
Students need to be included in these conversations to advocate for the policy that's going to be impacting them on a day-to-day level.
And high school students give La Utima Palabra on how they say students can affect change in their communities. First off tonight, as the state's eviction moratorium winds down, a housing crisis looms in Chicago. As many as 21,000 evictions are anticipated in the city in August once the ban is lifted, further threatening communities already struggling with economic fallout from the pandemic. Now, a coalition of community organizations has started an initiative aimed at keeping those families in their homes. They're trying to save a multifamily housing stock that helped build Chicago during its boom years, 2 to 4 flats. Joining us now with more are two members of the Chicago Flats Initiative, Mike Tomas, Executive Director of the Garfield Park Community Council, and Raul Bateo, Co-Executive Director of Communities United, which operates in the Albany Park, Belmont-Cragen, Alston, Roseland, and West Ridge neighborhoods. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here on Latino Voices.
No, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Raul, let's start off with you. Why do you think 2 to 4 flats are so critical to Chicago's housing stock?
So first, let's start with the numbers, right? It's almost, it's almost 40% of our stock, right? With that being said, I think historically, those 2 to 4 flats have been, were designed really for families. And over the years, those were the most affordable housing stock for our families, and particularly immigrant families. And so that is really why, in many ways, the 2 to 4 is not just unique. It's not just unique to Chicago, but it's the bedrock and the foundation of affordable housing, natural occurring affordable housing, where the owner usually is a family member, subsidizes in many ways a lower rent for the second unit. And in that case, and the fact that the city has an additional basement unit, ADU ordinance that in place, I think there's just a lot of opportunity at the moment to really focus on these 2 to 4 unit stock that really is Chicago in many ways.
Sure. Well, Mike, how are 2 to 4 flats being endangered, especially in your neighborhood of Garfield Park?
Yeah, so after the recession, the Great Recession, we were hit hard with the foreclosure crisis. And on the east side of the park of Garfield Park, we're seeing those 2 to 4 flats being converted to single family homes. And on the west side of the park and around Pulaski, we're seeing disinvestment and we're seeing the threat of demolition of those properties. Lastly, we've also seen a lot of business buyers coming in and purchasing these properties. So we're constantly trying to find homeowners that want to purchase these properties while they're competing against cash buyers that are scooping up these properties at lower prices.
Sure. Raul, how does the 2 to 4 flat fit into Latino communities?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my previous comment, you're looking at and really an opportunity for the uniqueness of a 2 to 4 flat in the fact that they're smaller units. It's it's equipped very much for a generational household, right? So usually the uncle or the aunt live in the on the first floor, and the owner on the second floor. It could be the mom and dad. It just that that is lends itself to immigrant Latino families in many ways, and it showed in a lot of the communities where the concentration of 2 to 4 flats during the pandemic. A lot of the cases that were coming out were in communities with high concentrations of 2 to 4 flats, which tells you that in many ways the dynamics of immigrant households play out beyond the notion of immigrant families working as having not just one resource, right? They also have resources in this particular stock.
Sure.
With the challenge with that is that the pressures that are going to come pretty soon, if not they're currently, as we speak, is that the foreclosure eviction crisis is going to hit hard on this particular stock and the immigrant families.
Well, Mike, what is the Chicago Flats Initiative trying to accomplish, and how are you doing outreach?
Yeah, I think short term, Michael, I think what we're really focuses on is keeping families in their home. Several of the members of the initiative have contracts with the state of Illinois, with the city of Chicago, to provide rental assistance both to the housing provider, the landlord, as well as to the renters. So we're diligently trying to continue with our outreach efforts door to door. The state has lifted that. Now we can go door to door. People are having events. So we're diligently getting the word out about the rental system. I'm happy to report people have been very responsive. We're able to help out the Spanish-speaking population, also the African-American communities on the west side. So we're all continue working towards serving those families and those housing providers in the coming weeks and months.
Well, we just got about 30 seconds. Long term, what do you think the city needs to do to preserve this kind of housing?
Excellent question. I think, as a whole, the city has been attempting to do a lot of focus on equity and particularly affordable housing, because in many ways we're at a tipping point where the city could really focus on this, like not just iconic stock, because it's been naturally occurring affordable housing. But we feel like if the city takes an aggressive approach in partnership with community, that from the federal stimulus fund, right, that an investment in this particular stock and in others around affordable housing, we don't have to see a New York City or Manhattan, right? Because
Right.
What is the city going to look like in 10 and 15 years?
Sure.
We want the diversity of our communities. And in many ways, I feel like the city, if they invest in this particular stock, particularly in keeping tenants and landlords and that make up the stock, I think that the city is on good pace to actually being diverse.
Well, our thanks to Mike Tomas and Raul Botello.
Thank you.
If you're riding the Blue Line this week, you may want to plan a stop at Logan Square, where a photo exhibit showcasing the people and places of the Northwest Side neighborhood has turned the station into a gallery. The photos were selected from a book published in 2020 that aims to capture the neighborhood as it undergoes a significant demographic and cultural shift. Chicago Tonight's Erica Gunderson has the story.
Just a few hundred feet behind me is Logan Crossing, which displaced the mega mall. So before, there was a very, very large shopping structure, which is so dear to many hundreds of community residents, called the mega mall.
Since she moved to Logan Square in 1997, resident Chloe Korova has seen many businesses and many neighbors come and go.
When you walk down Milwaukee Avenue, you see that new structure. For some people, like one resident we interviewed, Tara Merlot, who's a longtime resident, she's like, wow, it's like that's progress. But then there are lots of other residents who are like, every time I walk down Milwaukee, past that building, I feel a sense of mourning. I am losing something. So one of the things that we want people to be sensitive to when they're walking down Milwaukee, and I was like, yes, there's development. Development does come at a cost. And we should have a conversation about that.
To document that conversation, Korova published the Logan Square book, gentrification and preservation in a Chicago neighborhood. It captures what was for decades a predominantly Latino neighborhood as it has become a wealthier and whiter enclave.
One of the things that I was hoping to achieve with this book is to stoke a dialogue about preservation and gentrification. So what is the right mix of development and also preserving some of these businesses and historic structures? What are those nonprofits and cultural institutions that we want to make sure continue on?
Among the chapters featuring the people and places of Logan Square is a focus on its many independent businesses.
It was the Latinx businesses throughout the 1970s and 1980s that not only preserved a lot of the historic structures that we appreciate today, but also they laid the business foundation for all of these restaurants and cafes and new lifestyle retailers to be successful along Milwaukee Avenue.
The creative team behind the book, which includes text in English and Spanish, included 4 photographers and 3 writers.
Inez Bellina was the main writer, and one of the things that was really important to me is I wanted to be able to capture stories from residents, either in English or Spanish, whichever language they felt most comfortable with. And I decided I'm going to trust the neighborhood to tell their story authentically.
And now through June 27th, the Logan Square Blue Line Station is a subterranean gallery featuring a selection of photographs from the book.
And the concept is, I was thinking, what if we had the CTA Logan Square Blue Line Station be about the people and places of Logan Square? There's 44 panels of photographs of nonprofits, vernacular architecture, mom and pop shops, street art. And so I wanted to transform the station, which is normally you just hang out there and you wait for the next train. And now it's a place of learning. It's a place of important histories in the neighborhood, and it's also a place of contemplation, just like you would find at the Art Institute or any of the galleries downtown.
For Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
Again, that photo exhibit is at the Logan Square station until June 27th. Up next, a major donation for a museum in Pilsen. Stay with us. In less than 2 weeks, the National Museum of Mexican Art will reopen its doors after temporarily closing due to COVID-19. When that happens on July 1st, the museum will be kicking off operations with a major financial boost. The museum says it recently received an $8 million donation, the largest single gift in its 39-year history. The money comes from author and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and one of the wealthiest people in the world. Joining us to fill us in is the museum's founder and president, Carlos Doletero. Carlos, welcome to Latino Voices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's been more than a year since the museum closed in March 2020. What have the past nearly 500 days been like, and how did the museum adapt virtually?
We actually had an amazing year, in terms of our programming. In fact, we probably got more press coverage in the last year than any year of our history. We were doing so many program events. We were the only ones in town who were doing live tours with a cameraman and a guide at the same time, so one can interact with them. It was not a YouTube thing. It was live, on the internet. And we had people from around the world who saw us. So it was a very good year. But of course, it was a very sad year for all of us. So many people passed away. It was a very sad year for all of us.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me ask you this. What can attendees expect on July 1st when the museum reopens? Any safety protocols will be in place?
We're still discussing them. We really are. Things are changing so fast. I think we'll know more by the time we actually open. We have a staff group that's on this, that's working on this from other departments. And so we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. It looks like, right now, it looks like we may have to have people have masks get in, but then once they're in, we're going to take it off. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. This is also new to all of us. So I'm going to a lot of places to see how everybody else is doing it. It's interesting, every place I've gone to requires a mask, and once you're inside, there is no need to have a mask anymore. So we want to be safe and not sorry.
Right. Well, let's talk about this $8 million donation. How significant and how badly needed was this gift? And have you already sort of earmarked what you might use the money for?
The gift is so surreal. I still have to say, did this really happen? I mean, it's such an amazing, amazing gift. It is so nice because, in a sense, it is a confirmation that we've been doing so many great things, throughout the years. And so many people are responsible for that. So many people come to the museum all the time. All the great artists we've worked with. So it really is a great, great, great event for us in terms of that. How we're going to spend the money, our board and staff are talking a variety of ways of how to do it. Everybody has good ideas. I think most of it will wind up in an endowment, but we're still discussing, how we end up doing it. But this is a very good problem to have, a very good problem.
Absolutely.
To have.
Well, Carlos, let me ask you this. What makes the museum so special, and why do you think it was identified as the recipient of such a generous gift?
I think one of the things is that we're in a community. That is so important. We are free. That is so important. When I was a kid, all the museums were free. And my parents would take us, the whole family, to see all the museums. Nowadays, the arts can be so expensive to so many people. And I think we are accessible. We're in the community and we're free. I think that's very, very important. And I think we do great work as well. So I think when one combines all these things, it's important. And we are a place that we want everybody to come. Folks from all kind of backgrounds, kids, adults, everybody, seniors. We want everybody to come to the museum to see how beautiful and fantastic our culture is. We want to share it with people from both our community and outside the community. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people like coming to this place. I like working at this place.
Well, one of your current exhibits is by Mexican artist, painter Carmen Chami. What can you tell us a little bit about this artist? What can you tell us about her?
This is an amazing story. She's a fantastic artist. Came to Chicago like 4 or 5 years ago. Her show was about to open when the COVID hit. So basically, it's been up for, a year and 3 months with no audience, unfortunately. But now it's finally going to be open, and people are going to see a really, really great artist, here in Chicago. And we have so many great artists in Chicago. We really do. And we're very proud that we always have a chance to showcase, the artists in our community. There are just so many good artists. And Carmen is an amazing artist, and people are going to be so impressed by her.
Are there any other specific upcoming exhibits you're looking forward to?
Well, a couple of things. Our permanent, collection show, there have been a few changes, and that's very important. And of course, come the fall will be our Day to Death show, which is always a big hit for us. And I think, we are going to make sure that we honor the people who've passed away in COVID. And I really think Day to Death this year will be special, very special for a lot of people, because it's hard to find somebody who doesn't know someone who passed away, either a friend, a family member, a friend's friend or something. But COVID hit all of us. And it's important that we honor these people and always make sure that there's a place for them in all of our hearts. That's very important. And that's what Day to Death's about, to honor people who've passed away.
Our thanks to Carlos Totolero. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, untold stories about artist Frida Kahlo, so stay with us. For the first time since the late 70s, a portion of artist Frida Kahlo's original works are in the Chicago area as part of a new exhibit. Arts correspondent Angel Ito takes us for a visit and gives us a closer look at how Frida Kahlo's life influenced her work.
While she's known as one of the most influential Mexican painters of our time, a new exhibit honoring the late artist hopes to tell stories not commonly shared of Frida Kahlo.
The idea behind this was to give people context to her life, who she was, her influence, and not only about her, but what was going on in that period.
The first portion of the exhibit tells just that, a breakdown of who Kahlo was before she became an artist, leading up to a moment that would arguably define her work forever. A severe bus accident would require her to have more than 30 surgeries and force her to wear corsets for the rest of her life. But it was in her recovery period that she found ingenuity within her developing craft.
This is a recreation of the bed that Frida Kahlo painted some of her earliest self-portraits in, all with the help of a mirror.
Think about this young 18-year-old girl that's confined, that's vibrant and depressed. They created an easel that she could use while lying in bed. And they put a mirror underneath the canopy so that she could see herself. And so she started painting self-portraits. And she said, I often paint self-portraits because I am so often alone. And I am the subject I know best.
Now, once visitors have gotten to know the woman behind the artist, they're encouraged to use that knowledge to better interpret 26 of Kahlo's original works, borrowed from the Dolores Almedo collection.
Everyone can recognize the eyebrows, the clothes, the hair pulled up, but those are very superficial, kind of exterior representations of who she was. I think the opportunity to see these actual works in person is an opportunity to get as close to hearing Frida tell her own story. She speaks very directly and honestly about the challenges in her life. That has an honesty and an intensity that's coupled with the intensity of the images themselves, so it's almost like they're supercharged.
But the figures in her work are so recognizable, many argue that Kahlo's style was based in surrealism, an idea she rejected. But it's because of the stories within her stories that curator Justin Whitty describes her style as symbolic realism, most notably seen in her broken column self-portrait.
You have Frida exposed, the center of her chest kind of opened up, and you see in replaced of a spine, a column that's been shattered and cracked and is barely holding on. And then she herself and that column are kind of held together by this medical corset. And then on top of that crumbling, fragile column, you have Kahlo's head staring out at the viewer. And although she has tears coming out of her face expressive of the pain that she's in, her look is in no way resigned to the pain. And it's unapologetic. She did not run away from these realities in her life. She did not try to diminish herself because of them. And she was an incredibly strong, powerful woman and artist who spoke truthfully through her work, even when that truth was painful.
For Latino Voices, I'm Angel Ito.
And you can check out the exhibit Frida Kahlo Timeless until September 6th at the Cleve Carney Museum of Art, located in the Mackinac Arts Center in Glen Ellen. And as we have seen so much in the last few years, and especially in the last year, young people are often the vanguard of social progress. Here, 2 Chicago high school students give La Utima Palabra on how they say anyone, even teenagers, can create the change they want to see in their communities.
Hi, my name is Francisco Villaseñor. I'm a senior at Walter Payton College Prep. I'm going to pass it to my co-president, Isabella.
Hi, I'm Isabella Avila. I'm a junior at Lane Tech, and we are co-presidents of the Coalition of Advocates for Undocumented Students Education. We exist to support, empower, grow, educate, and bring together clubs representing undocumented immigrants in CPS high schools. Together, we strive to innovate constructive solutions to break down social obstacles faced by the undocumented community and cause fights for all students regardless of their legal status.
This work is so important to us because as students, we know that students need to have more of a handle in terms of the work that's happening within CPS and making sure that they have the opportunity to organize with one another. Students need to be included in these conversations to advocate for the policy that's going to be impacting them on a day-to-day level. And in particular for the undocumented students within CPS, we know that it's important that they have an input on what it is that they need in regards to legal help and mental health help, and to make sure that these students really know what's out there for them.
This work started over 2 years ago. We had a guest speaker come in for Lane's Club for Undocumented Students, and we wanted to find ways to build connections with other clubs who are doing the same work as us, and we wanted to see how we can take our change to a bigger level. Since then, we've been able to reach citywide across CPS high schools and lead changes across the district.
I think that in general, students are kind of glazed over with these things, or they aren't necessarily reached out to because people think that they can't really like have a voice in these matters, or they don't understand them well enough. But that's simply not true. I think that students are the ones that are being impacted by these policies every single day, and they need to have a voice in what's happening in their communities, and they need to be allowed the opportunity to speak up on what's really important to them.
I would tell other youth across the city that in order to make change, you just need to get involved, and you can start off small like we did from a small club and expand it across the city.
And congratulations to Francisco Villaseñor, who graduated from Walter Payton High School this week and is headed to Pomona College in the fall. You can find out more about their organization called Chicago and watch more in our La Utima Palabra series on our website. And that's our show for this Saturday night. Join Brandis Friedman tomorrow night at 6 for Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. And you can catch my reporting on 91.5 FM WBEZ, and I'll be here again in the host chair next week. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Michael Puente. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy, stay safe. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm serving Chicago for 37 years.